on this episode of Jeff Does Vegas.
I think what I bring to it is a daily perspective, a daily velocity, daily energy. I don't take breaks. And I don't really because the city doesn't. And I think the reason that more people don't try to do this job is because it's so mentally and physically demanding.
Las Vegas.
It's more than just a city.
It's a feeling.
It's that feeling of excitement when you spot the lights of the strip out the airplane window.
It's that feeling of awe as you stroll down the boulevard, taking in the sights and sounds.
And it's that feeling of satisfaction knowing that you're in the greatest city in the world.
Over 42 million people from around the world share that feeling every year.
And I'm one of them.
Taking you to the world-famous Vegas Strip and beyond, my name is Jeff, and this is Jeff Does Vegas. Hey there, and welcome to episode number 136 of Jeff Does Vegas. Before we get into this episode of the podcast, I just want to take a moment to thank everyone for checking out the last episode of the show, featuring the first ever Jeff Does Vegas Ask Me Anything. I had an absolute blast stepping out of my comfort zone and answering your questions about, well, anything. If you haven't listened as of yet, jump into the archives at jeffdoesvegas.com or search out episode number 135, Ask Me Anything. It's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Okay, here we go. On to the show. When you want to find out what's going on in the Las Vegas entertainment world, there's only one guy you need to turn to, and he's my guest for this episode of the podcast. John Katsilometes is the author of Cats, a daily column in the Las Vegas Review-Journal that covers everything and anything to do with entertainment in the city of Las Vegas, both on and off the Vegas Strip. John was kind enough to join me to chat about his beginnings in the world of journalism, how and why he moved from writing about sports to writing about entertainment, some of the big stories he's broken, and much, much more. Please enjoy my conversation with John Katsilometes.
I feel like I was born to be in Vegas, but I was not born in Las Vegas. My original hometown is Pocatello, Idaho. Both sides of my family are from Pocatello. I was actually born in Pullman, Washington, oddly enough. It was kind of a fluke. My dad was going to veterinary school at Washington State University, and I was born there, but I haven't been back to Pullman, Washington since I was 2 years old. Family's in Idaho. My dad had a veterinary practice there in Pocatello called the Community Animal Hospital when I was a child and all through my early years, and we worked at the hospital and were very active in the community there. My mom ran the business side of it. And then he sold his practice, and we moved to bought land in Chico, California, in that area, Northern California, north of Sacramento in the Sac Joaquin Valley. And we grew, we had almonds and walnuts, property that was that was the family business for several years there. So I grew up the second half of my life after age 13 in Chico, California. And my claim to fame there, one of them is that I went to the same high school as Aaron Rodgers of the Packers. His family's from up there also, so Pleasant Valley High School. So right after high school, I started working at the Chico Enterprise Record as a sports writer. I was 18 years old and did that for 7 years, moved to Redding, California, was a sports writer in Redding for 5 more years, and then was skyhooked out of Northern California by the Las Vegas Review-Journal in 1996, was a sports writer for about 2.5 years at the RJ, moved to the Las Vegas Sun and Greenspun Media Group, where I covered everything but sports and grew out my writing and editing and did all kinds of different things, magazine writing, digital writing, some video, and started the Cats Report in 2009, which is what Cats is today. And I came back to the Review-Journal in 2016. So that's the trajectory. But when I go to what I consider home, my original home, it's Idaho, Pocatello, and also in Boise. I have a lot of family in Boise, Idaho.
So what was it that got you into journalism? I know for me, getting into the world of radio, it was an interest in music, and I was always kind of fascinated about what was going on behind the scenes and really wanting to know how it all came together. What was it for you that steered you towards this world?
More so, I think I was really, I liked writing a lot. I really enjoyed just writing. from a very young age. I found that I had some ability to do that. I went to a Catholic school in Pocatello, and the nuns there realized that I had some aptitude. And I had one teacher in particular who was not a nun in 5th and 6th grade who saw that I had this ability and worked with me on it. And some very good instructors in high school as well, middle school, high school, junior high, high school. And I liked writing. And I was also very athletic. I was into sports. So it became natural that I would want to create a position in that world and in those cultures, to write, report about sports. So that's really what got me into it. But I really loved chronicling what was going on. I liked making sentences and creating stories, really. And the journalism fascination grew from that. I remember watching the movie All the President's Men at a very young age, and was very fascinated by that process. And I'll tell you one thing that happened to me when I was younger. I don't think I've ever actually told this story this way, but I used to go to basketball camps a lot. I was a good basketball player when I was a teenager, and so we'd go to these basketball camps. And one was run by Rick Barry, who was a superstar with the Golden State Warriors, and one of his guest players one year, they used to bring in star players, was a guy named Marcus Johnson. Marcus Johnson played for the Milwaukee Bucks, and he was a superstar at UCLA, and he came in to talk to us. And he opened up his session after he gave a tutorial about ball handling and some of the fundamentals about shooting fundamentals. He asked for some questions from the camp. One of my friends asked Marcus Johnson for his top 5 players in the NBA. He wanted his all-star lineup. And this is back when Larry Bird was a superstar and Magic Johnson was just in the league. So he said, he started to answer the question, and everybody was kind of hinging on it because Marcus Johnson was an all-star himself. And he started and he says, "Are there any reporters in the room?" And we all laughed, and I turned to my friend who asked the question. I go, "That's a pretty cool thing." I said, it would be cool to have a job where Marcus Johnson is aware of your job, even in an environment like that. And he laughed and he goes, because I was working at the school newspaper in those days. He goes, "Yeah," he goes, "you might have a scoop here." So Marcus Johnson proceeds to name his all-star team. It was Magic Johnson, I think Isaiah Thomas, Kareem, and himself and Larry Bird at forwards. And everybody went, "Ooh," because that meant he left Dr. J off the top 5. And I hit my friend. I said, "He left Dr. J off the top 5." And we thought it was such a big deal. But the fact that he was going to give out news, but he didn't want it to be reported, really impressed me. I just thought that's a prominent thing when you're in somebody's head like that. So that stuck with me, that particular moment.
So you started working in the world of sports writing. How did you make the move into entertainment? Because, of course, that is your wheelhouse now. You are the entertainment guy in Las Vegas media. So what was behind that shift?
Well, it was very gradual. I was a sports writer for a long time before I ever worked professionally outside of sports for about 14 years. And I was at the Review Journal, and they hired me. And I was covering UNLV's basketball program. And that was my main beat, the Runnin' Rebels. And then I was also covering the opening of the Las Vegas Motor Speedway, and then some golf. I covered Tiger Woods' first professional victory and some boxing with the Holyfield Tyson fights here, was helping with coverage of that. Frankly, I just burned out. I really burned myself out at the Review Journal in those days, and they saw it and I saw it. And I had to change. I had to get into a different environment to continue my career. Otherwise, I would have completely imploded, to be honest, at that point in my life. So I moved over to the Greenspun Media Group and took a job as a feature writer in the feature section. And the idea was that to me was to kind of restart my whole career at that point, and which I did. And it became that I was using the skills that I developed as a sports writer in other areas. And when I became a feature writer, I was writing about all different types of human interest stories. I gravitated toward performances and performers because I was really interested in looking at a show, breaking down a show, just like you would a game, and knowing the personalities behind that performance, production, or headlining show, and telling the story that way. So I really got into it that way. It was over time, but I was an the arts and entertainment editor for a long time too at the Las Vegas Sun. So I really moved into that. It didn't come immediately. It just kind of evolved in that direction. I never planned it. I would have been fine to continue to be the arts and entertainment editor at the Las Vegas Sun indefinitely. What happened there was the publication, as you know, became part of the Review Journal, delivered as part of the Review Journal as part of our joint operating agreement. So the full service afternoon paper became a section of the paper, no more arts and entertainment section. So I had to find other things to do and write about. And that's basically how the Cats column happened. But it was a real evolution, it was not planned.
So then how is it that you became, quote unquote, the guy in the world of Vegas entertainment reporting? Even before I met you, I knew who you were. I was aware of your work as a person that visits the city frequently and pays attention to what's going on in Vegas media. How did you manage to get the profile that you've got?
It's interesting. I don't know. There's others who do a lot of really high quality reporting in Las Vegas on the entertainment beat. My friend Brock Radke over at the Sun I worked with him for a long time, and Greenspun Media Group does a really good job. He's a bona fide journalist. I like him a lot. There's others out there who do it. I think what I bring to it is a daily perspective, a daily velocity. Daily energy. There's a lot. I don't take breaks, and I don't really because the city doesn't. And I think the reason that more people don't try to do this job is because it's so mentally and physically demanding. Frankly, it's very taxing on you to keep ahead of Las Vegas. So a lot of people just say we're going to do a certain type of coverage, but not try to cover the whole thing. I try to cover everythh from Adele to the woman who plays Adele in the Legends show, and all of that landscape in between. On Friday night, I was at Kenny Davidson's show at the Piazza Lounge, doing a charity thing for the American Cancer Society, where all the singers in town of these, Las Vegas singers came in and we raised money. This weekend, I will be at ZZ Top and Aerosmith. And probably Luke Bryan, okay, and that's what it is. I think what makes me prominent is simply because I am so available and I'm very productive. And I learned a long time ago that if you work hard in this field or any other, if you really work hard, people will respect that regardless of how much talent you have. If you continue to press the agenda, people will at least respect that. And in Las Vegas, for me, it's an easy thing to get my head around because I love what I do so much.
I can't imagine that there's another city anywhere in the world other than maybe Los Angeles and New York to a degree where you would be able to do the type of job that you're doing, where you're covering entertainment every single day.
Yeah, I haven't seen too many, Jeff. I haven't been. I would say New York would be somebody when I was visiting New York right before the shutdown, and actually during reopening, I was back there in December of 21. Somebody asked me that question while I was in New York. I was back there covering a show at Carnegie Hall, and hanging out with. There's a lot of Las Vegas people there, and I found that if I were to live in Manhattan, for example, I could probably do this and cover the Broadway scene and some of the other off-Broadway haunts, like Don't Tell Mama, where Kenny came from, those types of places. And really, I could probably do that and make that a base beat and then do work around the New York boroughs. That would be possible because you have arena shows. You have Billy Joel at Madison Square Garden. You know how it is. And New Orleans has a great live entertainment, live music especially, vibe. Nashville, Tennessee also. But I don't know. Las Vegas has so much variety, and we do so many production shows. And just the Smith Center for the Performing Arts itself could be a full-time beat now. They do shows almost every night at one of their venues. I'll tell you, I've been really built to do this. That's what I tell everybody. It's a unique position. It's not a position that was, that it was a position that I created. It's a beat style that I created and took over to the Review Journal. It wasn't, we had a columnist, the great Norm Clark, but as far as doing multimedia and doing things every day is what I've brought to the beat.
And as you say, I love the fact that with your column, you aren't just covering the big shows, the big residencies, the huge arena shows or stadium shows like so many other columnists do, not just in Las Vegas, but elsewhere across the country. You are out into those smaller venues and you are covering those smaller shows. And again, that's something that I really do enjoy about what you do.
Yeah, I think, and I've said this. Look, an example is last week I went over to a venue called Cheap Shot. It's on Fremont East, just off the Fremont Street Experience. It's like kind of like our off the Midway or off Broadway or off Broadway hospitality, retail, and entertainment boulevard. And I was there talking to a woman named Amy Saunders, who goes by Miss Behave, and she's an excellent entertainer. She's one of the most famous sword swallowers in the world, for starters. She's just a great kind of Carney-esque comedian, and she had the Misbehaved game show, which was an improv game show that was divided up the crowd, and she kept score and had contests inside that she made up on the fly. Brilliant woman. And she started a show called Mavericks inside the Cheap Shot. Cheap Shot is a discotheque, piano bar, does other shows, but Mavericks is the core of that business, and I've covered it, and it's a lot of variety, a lot of burlesque style acts, a lot of adult comedy, raunchy comedy, and she does some numbers. There's some a very good reggae number in it, variety show. And I'm in there with about 80 people off Fremont East in downtown Las Vegas, and I said then, and I've said since that place opened earlier this year, that if we're going to be taken seriously as the entertainment capital of the world, we have to support that show, that venue, with the same zeal as we do Adele or Celine Dion or Katy Perry, or you name it, man, Aerosmith. All of these people who perform at that higher level, that's our bedrock. That is our cornerstone. And that's why I take it so seriously, because if we lose that, we lose some of our charm in Las Vegas. We lose some of our edge too, frankly, so that's why I do it. And I love it too. I enjoyed going,
In the years that you've been doing the Cats column, you've had the opportunity to cover a lot of big stories and break a lot of big news. What would you say is the biggest story that you've had the opportunity to break?
Oh man, that's hard to say. Probably, I was first to report the death of Jerry Lewis. That was a big one. That was international news. I was the first person to interview Roy Horn when he came back, when he was able to be interviewed after he was the attack at the Mirage. That was a big one. Those are two that really stand out as major, really big international stories. Yeah, the Jerry Lewis story went around. I judge it by how much response I get with people wanting to interview me. And in both of those instances, I had a tough time. The Jerry Lewis story, I had a tough time concentrating on the work I was doing, because we didn't, I had to write a column about Jerry Lewis because I knew him. He was a friend of mine, and I had to work through that. And I was getting bombarded with international and national media outlets trying to, get comment. And I did fulfill a lot of them, but a lot of them I couldn't. And that one was the most recent one that really, that really went up the ladder. I might be missing some others, but as far as verifiable break alone on them, those are the ones that, and Roy had disclosed to me during our interview that he had an addiction to opiates during his care that he had to get over. And him and Siegfried had both over time told me about their version of the attack that has become kind of their, what had become their account for record, and that the whole thing was an accident. The cat was confused and dragged him off the stage out of pure confusion. So that was kind of the first time that explanation had come from Siegfried and Roy. It was in that interview. That was 2 years after he was injured.
There have been so many stories that have floated around surrounding the Siegfried and Roy incident. And it's interesting that they had that level of trust in you, that they were willing to share what they considered to be their official account with you surrounding the incident.
Yeah, that's their version, and I've been questioned myself about that one a lot. I can tell you that what's really remarkable, Jeff, about that is that the video never came out. The video never surfaced. I don't even know if it still exists, the house video of that incident. So all we have is, secondhand accounts from people like Steve Wynn who saw that, or the people who were inside the room at the time. We don't have the actual official word. I've always felt that the act broke, that Roy was loose, the cat was agitated. Roy did celebrate his birthday the night before. It was a big party. That happened. He might not have been quite on his game. And the cat reacted accordingly. One thing that they said, though, and this wasn't in that particular interview, it was on the 10th anniversary of it in 2013, that when a big cat gets a hold of you and wants to do damage to you, if that animal, which was about a 400 or maybe 600-pound animal, monocore, you're finished. If you go watch, I talk to veterinarians about this. Watch a feline work with a stuffed animal sometime, and how they handle that. Imagine a 400-pound tiger handling a human being and moving it around his mouth and stepping on it. He would have been finished if that were, I feel, really the motive of the cat. But it's all semantics now. It was a tragic event, and those are guys I knew also. I had known Siegfried and Roy over the years, and fascinating individuals, to say the least, and broke records that will never be surpassed here in Las Vegas.
It's a great point you bring up about the fact that the video has never surfaced. I feel like that is just a product of the time period. In this day and age, if something like that were to happen, the video would be up online within minutes, if not seconds. But during that time period, that just wasn't a thing.
Oh, no question about it. Even in shows where phones are put in a yonder pouch or pouched, you can. I firmly agree that there would have been no question there would have been video of that out, and it would have changed the reporting of that story. That's one of the biggest changes in my career is the advent of social media and phones being used as reporting tools by everybody. Everybody's a journalist somehow, so you have to be aware of that. But it's a different time, and we have to, those of us who've lived through all of it have had to adapt to it.
After the break, John shares his thoughts on the impact that sports is having on entertainment in Las Vegas, and we talk about some of the celebrities he's met and whether any of them have ever surprised him. That's next on Jeff Does Vegas. Over the time that you've been doing this gig in Las Vegas, you've gotten to meet a lot of really interesting people and become friends with a lot of them as well. Is there anybody that you've met who really kind of surprised you in that you were expecting them to be one thing and they ended up being something totally different from what you were expecting?
That happens occasionally. Yeah, you do keep your landscape wide open, I was pleasantly surprised by Celine Dion, to be honest, because she came into Las Vegas and was at this exalted international superstar that was the reason that they built the Coliseum and had done all this renovative work at Caesar's Palace. And I'd only known her work. I'd only known that they were doing this. And when it came time to actually meet her, I had expected Diva ZX, I thought that I didn't feel like she would have much care or regard for me at the time. This is quite a while ago when I first talked to her, but I was really struck by how sincere she was. And this goes not just to me directly, but for all the people who were around her. That was one I was very pleasantly surprised about. And also, I had a chance to meet David Letterman a few years ago. He was here in town supporting Paul Schaefer's show at the Cleopatra's Barge. Paul Schaefer and the Shapeshifters in there. He was doing a kick-in lounge gig with David Perico's band and Noibel Gorgoy out of Cuba singing, and it was a badass show. It was great. And to generate some interest in it, they said they're going to have this special friend guest star of Paul Schaefer come into the show, and it turned out to be David Letterman. So I had a chance to interview David Letterman and Paul Schaefer before, and I expected Letterman to be a lot more standoffish. I had a chance to be with him, and I said, "Okay, let's get this over with." But I was impressed by how inquisitive he was about my job. I handed him my card, and he goes, "Oh yeah," and he goes, "What do you do?" And I kind of explained it to him. He sat there and he goes, "That's a good gig, isn't it?" And I go, "Yeah, it really is, Dave." So those are some that where I was more pleasantly surprised. There have been those who have been kind of they don't have much time for me or use for me, but nothing super dramatic. Most people are on their best behavior when they talk to the media.
I always love that when it kind of gets turned around on us, like David Letterman did to you. I had something similar to that happen to me with Alice Cooper. I had a chance to spend about a half an hour interviewing Alice Cooper and talking to him about music. And at the time, he was doing the Nights with Alice Cooper radio show. And so after we finished talking for a half an hour about music and we were off the air, he came around to the other side of the board and wanted to kind of see things on my side, and then asked me about my radio career and talked to me for like 20 minutes about radio. And in my head, I'm like, this is the most surreal thing I've ever had happen to me. This is bizarre. Alice Cooper is interested in me.
Yeah. I've interviewed him not that long ago, a few months ago. He was doing a series of commercials. He was a part of a series of celebrities doing commercials for the Dollar Loan Center venue. And they were on a Zamboni machine, which was the loan approval machine. And he was driving a Zamboni across the ice, and they had all the lights and everything up. And here comes Alice Cooper across. I mean, it was weird. And it was funny. It was really funny. But I interviewed him after that. And I'd interviewed him before, but I talked to him afterward. And one thing about Alice Cooper, very nice guy. Great golfer. I think he might be almost a scratch golfer. And he refers to himself as in the third person when he's talking about his stage personality. He goes, a lot of people, when they see Alice, they kind of respond a certain way. It's like, it's not like I'm Alice on the golf course, But I can see him doing that. I can see him being that way with you.
Vegas is one of these cities that's always kind of in flux. Things are always changing. Things are always on the move, particularly in the entertainment world. In the years that you've been covering it, what are some of the biggest changes that you've seen?
I think the biggest changes have been the proliferation of superstar headliners, which have if you look back, let's say you look back about 10, 15 years ago, we had Celine Dion started the whole superstar residency culture in theaters in the early 2002. But after that, it wasn't until about 2013 that Britney Spears opened at the what is now Zappos Theater, and they redesigned that theater for her. That created the environment where contemporary stars could run, several weekends a year in Las Vegas and have success, and it made it okay. When that happened, we had J-Lo, Gwen Stefani, Shania Twain, Rod Stewart, Elton John, all coming into Las Vegas. They're all, some were playing Zappos, some were playing the Coliseum. Then they built what is now Dolby Live, and that's, home of Lady Gaga and Bruno Mars. Aerosmith, Silk Sonic has been in there. Jason Aldean, Garth Brooks did a run in there. And the Resorts World Theater, the big theater at Resorts World, built and designed by the same crew that built and designed the Coliseum, is where Celine is going to come back, where Katy Perry, Luke Bryan, and Carrie Underwood have headlined, where David Blaine has headlined. When we have all these theaters now We have the old joint at the former Hard Rock Hotel, now Virgin Hotel Theater, still activated. We have Carlos Santana at House of Blues doing his thing. When you look at how many superstar headliners we have here, that right there has changed the entertainment landscape irrevocably in Las Vegas. It's created destination shows that are big money for not only the venue, but the hotel, the host hotel, and surrounding hotels. We have people coming in multiple times for favorite artists, like Britney Spears, for example. We have many touring shows that stop there as well. So that has created, that's the biggest change in Las Vegas, because it's created the marquee names that have enhanced our reputation as the entertainment capital of the world. But on the other side, it's also made it more challenging for shows that are not in that strata to survive. And we're talking about some of the Cirque du Soleil shows. We're talking about Spiegelworld shows, which are absent, Atomic Saloon Show, Opium, those types of shows, and further, even smaller shows to compete. But that has changed the trajectory of entertainment immensely. We also have a new, the T-Mobile Arena, which has led to the Vegas Golden Knights. That has become part of sports entertainment in Las Vegas. And beyond that, we have Allegiant Stadium with the Las Vegas Raiders, where now we have stadium tours stopping in Las Vegas. It wouldn't have stopped here before. We just have Taylor Swift, of course, in March performing there. We had Motley Crue Stadium Tour, Garth Brooks, Rolling Stones in there, saw them this year, and on and on. So we, it's a, even Imagine Dragons played Allegiant Stadium. So those are the big changes. It's the scale of entertainment that's really changed, and it's come at something of a cost, because the traditional shows have gone by, some of them gone by the wayside. But that's how we present entertainment in Las Vegas today.
I was just going to ask about the effect that those large-scale venues and those big residency shows have had on some of the smaller, more intimate venues and some of the smaller scale shows. Something that I always really enjoyed going to Las Vegas pre-COVID was the ability to just sort of be able to wander from casino to casino, going in and out of lounges, catching some really amazing live music, and you never really knew what you were going to get, but it was always really entertaining and really amazing. The last few trips that I've made post-COVID, I've noticed that there isn't as much of that available. Is that a fact, or is that something that's just kind of in my head?
There are a lot fewer opportunities to experience what you're talking about on the Strip than there used to be. You have to pick your spots about where to go. They are out there. The MGM Grand has Losers Lounge. Mandalay Bay has Rhythm and Riffs, no cover places you can duck into. They also have a cabaret little lounge at Mandalay Bay, for example. They have the Parlor at Mirage is a cool thing. Bellagio has their piano players out front. They're out there if you know where from. That's what Cool Hang Alert is all about. It's trying to find those places and get those out there. More often than not, you're going to be going off the Strip. You're going to be going to station casinos. You're going to be going to places like Arizona Charlie's on Decatur and on Boulder Highway. You're going to see more locals targeted programming, either low capacity or low cover or no cover and small capacity. The Copa Room at the Bootlegger Bistro on Mondays is that type of place. Although it's a paid ticketed event at Santa Fe and the Fat City Horns, they blow the place up. That's a very traditional Las Vegas style gig. But, what has happened in these hotel casinos is that each of these lounges are expected to try to make a profit on their own. And that has created a climate where unless you can generate either a cover charge or a cover charge and bar sales, or bar sales alone that will subsidize the band and make money for the hotel, you're probably not going to be in there. A classic example is David Perico and his Pop Strings Band. David has a number of bands, but his his main band is the Raiders House Band. They're called David Perico and the Raiders House Band. They play every Sunday at Allegiant Stadium. They went back to Canton, Ohio, and played the Hall of Fame event for Cliff Branch when he was inducted in August. Killer band, one of the, those guys, Santa Fe and the Fat City Horns, Lon Bronson All-Star Band. I mean, it goes down the list. They're in that category. David came back from COVID, from the shutdown, and started performing at Red Rock Resort, Rock's Lounge. One of his versions of his band was, I think it was a 7-piece out there at Rock's Lounge. They wanted to make more money than they had before. They were being paid the same as they had for many years, according to Dave, and they wanted to make a little bit more money to pay the musicians. They couldn't get that money because there's a certain budget for music at Rock's Lounge. So David decided not to play there anymore, and they're doing other bands. If in the old days of Las Vegas, you would just pay for all those musicians and let another department cover you. And that department was usually gambling, your gambling budget. Gambling isn't what it used to be. It's not the main driver anymore. Retail and restaurants are. So when it becomes a requirement for a venue to make money consistently, it puts a lot of pressure on the operator and on the acts to generate business. David was a big player at the Cleopatra's Barge, the 10 p.m. shows on the weekends. They needed to install a 2-drink minimum for his shows. And if you've ever been in Cleopatra's Barge, to get 2 drinks served in 90 minutes is a challenge, man. Just is. It's just not easy. When he packed that place and people are dancing, no servers, they were fighting the good fight, but it was very tough to get 2 drinks to every single person in that room. It was a tough thing to make money based on that. And when the new owners came into Caesars Entertainment, the people from El Dorado, they shut down Cleopatra's Barge. Not only for David, for everybody. And Wayne Newton in there. Rita Rudner was going to have a gig in there. Dionne Warwick had played in there. And so, it was financial, and that's why, I wish that we lived in a world where the resorts would just pay those bands a salary to be in there and then track and make sure that they understood that the people who were coming into that room are spending money elsewhere in the casino. There's no effective way to do that. There's no app that will say, okay, John Katz comes in to see David Perico at Cleopatra's Barge. But before that, he goes and drops 40 at a machine. After that, he goes and eats at the Palm Restaurant. After that, he might go and make a couple sports bets and hang out at the sports book. John wouldn't be in there in the first place if it weren't for the David Perico experience. And maybe John's here in a room because David's here. I would like to see a more accurate and a deeper appreciation for the business that these bands especially bring to the hotels. But until then, we're just seeing them kind of dwindle away. The Le Cabaret at Paris, a really fun live music venue, has been shut down. There's been a number of them that have been closed.
What do you think the impact has been of sports on the entertainment world in Las Vegas? I mean, I know you alluded to it a little bit earlier with the Vegas Golden Knights. And I mean, I've been to several Knights games, and it's an entertainment experience in and of itself. But now with the Raiders in there and the Knights, and now F1 coming next year and Super Bowl coming, people do have a limited budget to spend, and tickets for a lot of those events are not cheap by any stretch of the imagination. As Vegas becomes more of a sports destination, do you think we're going to see even more of these destination headliner residency acts coming in?
That's an interesting issue because we consider sports to be entertainment now. This is how the city treats the Raiders and the Golden Knights, especially. I go back to what Derek Stevens said when he opened up the Circa Sportsbook at Circa. I was asking him if the hotel generally was going to have a showroom, and he said, "No, we'll do something on the pool deck. We'll have DJs and performances out there from time to time, but we consider sports at our scale to be entertainment." And he also runs the downtown Las Vegas Event Center, so if you need concerts and festivals, you'll have that out there. I think We will see people going to more sporting events in place of live entertainment, specifically in Las Vegas, as we move forward. If we get an NBA team, that'll certainly be the case. The Golden Knights have had a profound effect on how people spend time and money in Las Vegas recreationally, because they do so many games per year. I think it's 44, and home games, including the preseason, at 18,000 per night. And that can only have an effect on the viability of other forms of entertainment. And I hear this complaining all the time from shows, from smaller shows. Like, a good example would be like when Human Nature was at the Venetian, the Australian Motown act. They had a residency, what was called the Sand Showroom in those days. And they were, cruising right along. And then the Golden Knights opened, and they saw a drop in their ticket sales. And they said this in real time. They said, we're noticing that there are more people who are going to spend their money on the sports than they're going to come down and see Human Nature. And they eventually moved off their residency right as COVID took hold, and are performing just occasionally at the South Point showroom. It's on Las Vegas Boulevard, but not a strip hotel. A lot fewer dates. But still selling out those dates. So we're seeing a lot of adjustment that way. Off-strip places taking on entertainers who used to be on the strip, fewer shows, but they're still out there if you know where to find them.
John, if people want to find you online, read your article, listen to your podcast, follow you on social media, how can they go about doing that?
The best way is my Twitter account is @JohnnyKatz. My Instagram is @JohnnyKatz1. I'm on the homepage of the Review Journal, reviewjournal.com. And as I say, I'm on page 3A every day and online all the time. And follow me, pick it up. And, all I can tell you is we're updated frequently in every which way. And if you want to know about Las Vegas, I'm a good place to start.
Excellent, John. Thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
Great being here, Jeff. Thanks for inviting me.
In addition to John's column in the Las Vegas Review-Journal and his Twitter and Instagram feeds, be sure to check out his podcast, Podcats, where he dives into the Vegas entertainment scene, chatting with all the big names, sharing their stories. Get it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever else you get your podcasts. And of course, I've got all these links in the show notes at jeffdoesvegas.com. And that wraps up another episode of Jeff Does Vegas. If you've got feedback on this episode of the show, or any other episode for that matter, or you've got suggestions and ideas for topics you'd like me to cover on the podcast, please feel free to reach out to me via Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram at Jeff Does Vegas, or drop me an email directly at jeff@jeffdoesvegas.com. In the meantime, thank you so much for checking out the show. Be sure to follow us wherever you get your podcasts so you'll know the moment new episodes are available. And don't forget to visit jeffdoesvegas.com for past episodes and show notes. My name is Jeff, and this has been Jeff Does Vegas, a Walker New Media production.